Welcome to the Tyrant Network podcast. I am your host, Corey Frederick, and I am off the mat today with Dan Tramontozzi. Dan, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me, Corey.
I know that we've talked a little bit over the years. We've worked a couple times together, but I really want to take an opportunity to get to know you better and know your organization better, and then really let everybody out there, our million listeners, let them know what's going on with pin cancer. So you're from New Jersey, North Jersey. You're a wrestler. That's not what you do for a living, but you started Pin Cancer, a nonprofit organization, a few years ago. So I'll just kind of hand it over to you, but I'd really love to hear more about it, or want the listeners to hear more about it. And then I know we have some exciting news or some announcements that we'll let loose sometime throughout this podcast. So why don't you take it away?
Yeah, thanks, Corey. A little bit about myself. I am a former wrestler from New Jersey. Wrestled for Powerhouse Kittatinny. During our reign, 4 years, we were four-time Group 2 state champs. We had, I think, like 10 guys qualify my senior year for states. I was a two-time place winner. I took third my senior year. I was never pinned throughout my entire career, and I waited to the state semifinals to get decked. Got tossed by Corey Bleakin from Clifton. And, you don't remember all the wins, but you definitely remember those losses. That one probably hurt the most, but, bounced back, took third, and finished my career there. Went on and wrestled for Bloomsburg for a short period of time. And, when I graduated college, I got the news that my mother was diagnosed with cancer, and just wanted to do something. At the time, I was actually coaching for a club up here that for gentlemen that trained me throughout my entire career, just kind of on the side as I got my career started. And I was still involved with the sport. So I was like, hey, let me try to do something here. It affected me firsthand, and I didn't really see anything that was already existing in the sport for this type of organization. So I said, let's do it. I was 22, 23 years old, and I borrowed $2,000 from my coach at the time to buy some t-shirts, and just went around here to local matches, youth, clubs and all that stuff. And I think I paid him back a week later. And, fast forward to today, we've raised over $3 million. And, it's definitely.
Graduate Bloomsburg.
What year? 2009.
Okay. So we're talking about 15 years ago is when your mom was diagnosed, but it was fresh out of college and you were coaching for a little while. So you sold some t-shirts, but what year did you actually start Pin Cancer?
We started about 2012.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was something that me and a buddy of mine were just kind of messing around with. And he was involved with a similar organization that started at Bloomsburg as well, called Red Card Cancer. His name's Jared Ferrari. I still talk to him today. We were the ones that founded Terra Grappler, or it's Matador now, and we sold it this year. So he's been with me the entire way, and he helped me kind of get it off the ground. And it was just very small grassroots, and we slowly implemented, a website, and I built an e-commerce platform, and we were able to ship shirts throughout the country. And then we implemented a fundraising tool called Classy, which allowed us to reach anybody essentially in the world. So we saw some great growth over, that 10-year period. And then, when you and I partnered with our tournament, it was one of the best fundraisers we ever did. And we had a tournament back in 2019. And I think we raised over $150,000 on the weekend. And, then COVID hit. So for the past 4 years, it's always been something that I've always done this on the side. I work full time. I'm been in marketing, and, worked for big Fortune 100 companies like Unilever. I've worked for startups during their Series A. Right now, I work for a company that does about $20 million a year. And Pin Cancer was always in the back of my mind, was something I was going to do on the side. And unfortunately, I think it was just my own limiting belief. In my mind, I was like, the wrestling market's too small. This will never be full time for me. But now, I'm seeing some other organizations that do almost something identical that we do, but with jiu-jitsu. And really admire them. They're called Tap Cancer Out, and everything's kind of coming full swing right now. Back in 2020, I was so deep into my career. I was having, I had young kids, and running Terra Grappler and just doing a million things. Pin Cancer, unfortunately, took just got pushed to the side. We couldn't have a wrestling tournament. There was no season to fundraise on top of. So that kind of, in my mind, just really deterred me from wanting to do it anymore. I was doing it for so long for, essentially by myself. And I actually had a buddy of mine, Eric Shaw, who's on our board now. He reached out to me, I think back in like 2021. We wrestled together at Bloomsburg. Great guy, just really just wants to help people and just, great family guy and, loves the sport of wrestling. He approached me and he essentially was like, "Hey, listen, I have a kid that's just got diagnosed with cancer. He's on my son's team. He's like 6 years old, just lost his father to cancer, like just a terrible situation." And that was, for me, that was like, all right, I can't stop doing this. We need to do something. So we ended up raising some money for him. And then we just took it from there in terms of getting new board members on board. And we just, hired Skylar Grow, who was a great addition to us. Essentially what it came down to is I needed help. And I think I took it as far as I possibly could by myself.
So
Um,
how many years did you run a tournament? Like when did you start running the tournaments, Pink Cancer Nationals?
I think we did it probably only 3 years, to be honest. The first year, we probably raised around $65,000. I shout out to Paul Gandy from South Jersey. He's the one, I think, from Pennsville that approached me, was like, "Hey, I want to do a tournament for you." And this was probably like a year after my mom passed. It was just like I was still a kid, I was 20. I'm 27 years old at the time, and I don't know how to run a wrestling tournament. So he really helped me with that. And then we went to Easton, and I tried to be the tournament director and do all the fundraising and everything, and it was a disaster. The tournament wasn't a disaster. It was just a really poor experience for me. And I think I was just young and dumb and tried to take on everything. And now that I'm, 10 years older, I realized, partnering with you back in 2019 and the tournament was the best run tournament I've ever been to be honest. And when you look at our reviews for Pink Cancer, whether they're on Facebook or something like that, we have all 5-star reviews and it's from that event. So like that was an eye opener. We wanted to do it, but unfortunately, the following year COVID hit. So that just dampened everything. I think over the past 4 years, people are coming out of that now, obviously. And now it's just time for me to, build a big team and not be afraid to reach out to people for help. And, I would love for this to be full time for me in the next 2 to 3, 4 or 5 years, whatever it takes. I do have a number in the back of my mind that we need to generate, it's in the millions. And I think if I can get there, then I can justify doing this full time because I really do enjoy it.
So, but you, yeah, because I didn't know, like the first I ever heard of Pink Cancer was Pink Cancer Nationals when it was in Pennsville with Paul. So prior to that, you had the organization for a few years, but you were just selling like shirts and doing things like that.
Yeah, we were just selling shirts. I was doing fundraising online. I think we introduced Classy probably in like 2015-ish, which really helped us. We've done over $1 million on that platform alone, and that helped us just expand our reach. And I was doing a lot of little things here in New Jersey. We, who are the teams? Phillipsburg and Warren Hills used to do an event each summer where they put the wrestling mat out on the football field and they'd raise $5,000-$10,000. We have an online fundraising campaign called Wrestle for a Cure that runs the entire season. So we try to get both teams and wrestlers involved with that. We have a wrestling club out in Colorado called, or not Colorado, sorry, Missouri, called Columbia Wrestling Club. And shout out to them because they raised over, I think, $120,000 through our Wrestle for a Cure campaign throughout the years. It really starts with like a really good team leader in terms of like whether it's a team mom, team dad, or a coach that reaches out, gets the team kind of engaged, and then we try to work with them as possible, as best as we can to get them to do a Pink Cancer night where we give them singlets. And really, we have a lot of teams that want to do that to spread awareness, and that's great. But at the same time, we really need the teams to concentrate on the fundraising aspect of it because that's what keeps us going, not just the awareness piece of it. So we're still, working out some things where we can just make it as seamless as possible for these teams to get involved. But yeah, to answer your question, we weren't really doing a lot of tournaments. I did a wrestling camp up here at Kittatinny probably 10 years ago. We had some great clinicians. My nemesis, Dan Valamont, shout out to Dan, who, was I think 2-time NJ state champ. Unfortunately, we were in the same district, same region, so I met him in the finals throughout my entire career. Who else did we have? Quentin Wright from Penn State, who was a, NCAA champion. We had Hudson Taylor. I think he has like the most pins in college history. He wrestled for Maryland, or he's like top five. And then lastly, we had the Zanetti brothers with Wrestling Mindset. You're going back 10 years ago. This is not, we weren't as big as we are now, right? So these guys came out, they volunteered their time, and we had a 3-day camp. It was awesome. But really, going down a rabbit hole, but just to touch on your original question, I was doing all this stuff, but not until we did the tournaments did I really understand like that is where we're going to generate the most buzz, the most engagement. We try to get the kids involved when they sign up. They get a fundraising page. If they hit certain milestones in their fundraising, they earn gear. That going back to 2019, that tournament was just great. We had so many kids do it with that.
If they hit a certain level, you guys are giving away like custom shoes too, aren't you?
Yep. So at the time we were building Terra Grappler alongside with Pink Cancer. Jared and I were doing that. And the reason why Terra Grappler kind of came to fruition was I was buying my gear from all these other wrestling brands. And I kind of went to Jared and I was like, we could probably do this. Like we design our stuff anyway. Do you want to, build a for-profit business, a wrestling and shoe apparel company? And he was like, yeah, let's do it. So we introduced the whole sock, the inner sock compression sock, which was like our differentiator. And, Jared and I consider ourselves decent businessmen. We have a, strong growth and marketing background. At the time he was with Samsung, now he's with Meta. So like, he knows his stuff, right? And I let him do all the design. I did the marketing. We kind of piggybacked off of Pink Cancer, but the win-win was we were charging Pink Cancer less, so we were saving the organization money, and we were just benefiting on the other side. I asked a million people, I'm like, is this ethical? And they're like, yeah, why not? You're paying for this stuff, and you're spending more with another wrestling brand, so why not do it yourself and cut out the middleman, right? So that's what we did. And then in addition, we started releasing some wrestling shoes, but yeah, that gave us an opportunity to create a shoe for Pink Cancer, and we did it for that tournament. If kids raised over $1,000, they got the whole package. They got a shirt, t-shirt, hoodies, and then they got the wrestling shoes as well. And we brought all the gear with us. They picked it up while they were there. And if a kid didn't get the pair of wrestling shoes but really wanted them, they could buy them there. And overall, logistically and everything, it was just a great run event. And you were a part of that. Obviously, you acted like as our tournament director, and it went super smooth. And what's great for me and my team is we just had to show up and set up a booth and sell some stuff and talk and then let you do your thing. So I think that's we're seeing Tap Cancer out do that. They're doing, I would say, at least an event every single month, if not more. I believe his name is Justin Thomas, and we've spoken before, and maybe I just have to reconnect with him because I need the motivation, the mentorship to do, I think, the same thing. We want to do more events throughout the country, and I want to do more than one a year. So that's where we're at.
So I know you mentioned your mom was diagnosed, unless I missed something, but she had passed away though, correct?
Yeah. So my mom was diagnosed when I was 22, and she had stage 3 ovarian cancer, and the doctor essentially, her doctor was like, they give you a timeline. So they gave us 5 years, and it was 5 years. I think when I spoke at my mom's funeral, I mentioned that she was always so positive. Like, you wouldn't have known she was sick. Even up to like the week before she passed, did she really start to, deteriorate a little bit, and she was on hospice. But before that, I mean, she was strong as hell, and she just was my inspiration throughout it all. And I think, something good came out of that. She was the reason why I started it. I was affected firsthand. She helped me throughout those 5 years. She came to events. I remember my parents and I sitting down and handwriting envelopes or addresses to coaches throughout like the state. We did one by one. And I remember sitting in their office, I was still living at home at 22, unfortunately. And just, that's where it started. And, we grew slowly. And now I'm at a point where I'm like, no, now I want to blow this up. Right. So we're looking at those partnerships, and for the first time ever last year, getting corporate sponsors to help us offset like our fundraising costs. Like a lot of people don't know, but a nonprofit is kind of, it runs just as essentially as a for-profit company. We just don't pay tax because that's basically the money that we donate. So things cost money. Like our fundraising platform is more than $10,000 each year. So we're kind of starting in the red. But going back, yeah, I mean, my mom was the big inspiration behind it, and the good part of it, and one of the last memories I have with her was her and I flew down to St. Jude with a $25,000 check, and we presented it to them. And I think if you go on our website, you'll see the picture of that. And that was just a really great experience to spend that time with my mom. And I felt very proud to bring her down there because she always supported St. Jude throughout the year. She's part of the reason why they're one of our beneficiaries. I think we've donated over $300,000 to them. There's actually a plaque. I have a picture of it. I haven't been down there since. I need to get back down to St. Jude, but there's a plaque that says in honor of Marjorie Tramontozzi, the inspiration behind the pink cancer campaign. And that's actually hanging up at St. Jude, which is really cool. That's kind of like how we honored her. And she made that trip, and not even a month later, she passed. So like, I don't even know how she made the trip. We tried to put her in a wheelchair. So, we were walking around the entire campus of St. Jude the entire day. And I had a great rep at the time. And, she didn't even want the wheelchair. She was like, no, I can walk. So she was just super tough up until the end. And, we always kind of said like, this is what came out of it. And we'll continue to have that positive impact on the wrestling community through my mom.
I feel like, first of all, I'm sorry that you lost your mother. I feel like a lot of times when people start a foundation, a nonprofit, it's after the fact, but you started it when your mother was still alive. Was it always to raise money for other organizations and she was just your inspiration, or was it originally like even just to try to help with some of your own bills that you guys had to pay?
No, it was pure. I mean, she's very selfless. It was purely about raising money for other people. I think we all understood what she was facing over the next 5 years or so. We were all hoping that she was going to beat it. Obviously, she did go into remission, and then when it came back, it just came back with a vengeance. But the motivation was always about helping other people. And we did do a fundraiser for her where I was able to raise money through Pink Cancer, but it was, marketed and messaged as this is a little, fundraiser for my mom specifically. And I think we raised, I can't remember the number, but we called it like Fight for Margie. We had an event up here at a restaurant, and just like family and friends came, but we did have some support from the wrestling community to help us out on that. Our beneficiaries were always around pediatric cancer, just because that was something that we spoke about, and we've been tied to St. Jude for so long, but now we're starting to branch out. And for instance, Rob Schmidt, who joined our board, his son raised over $15,000 in our Wrestle for a Cure campaign. Rob is actually battling cancer right now himself. So we donated all the $15,000 that his son raised to UPenn and their Penn Medicine's fund for cancer research and just development through his doctor. So we are starting to branch off, and where it makes sense, we're donating. So
that's why I was wondering if do you guys earmark the money? Is it for research? Is it to help support families because they're out of work for a year or whatever? Like, where is the money going?
Yeah, so it's split up
to
the
organization.
Yeah, it's split between a handful of beneficiaries. And one thing that we did start last year was we started supporting wrestling families in need. So for instance, the team in Lehigh Valley where Eric was coaching, and he had that, firsthand experience, he approached me and said, can we raise money for this little boy in particular? And I said, yeah, hell yeah, like, let's do it. So we are starting to just build out the logistics behind that, because it is hard, because we do want to help individual families. But it's, at the end of the day, that almost becomes like a glorified, like, GoFundMe, right? A lot of times what we see is communities will help people in their community. Unfortunately, we haven't seen just a lot of support from people who don't know other people, like across the country, right? So that's where our main beneficiaries come into play, because then you can bring everyone together. Like, there's some people out there that aren't affected by cancer at all, but they do want to help, so that we have, our beneficiaries in St. Jude. This year we added Alex's Lemonade Stand, which is a great organization that raises money for pediatric cancer. So there are other organizations that we support. But for instance, with St. Jude, I don't know the exact breakdown, but they essentially have like 3 different buckets where their monies go to from their organization, their fundraising arm of the hospital. And if anyone knows St. Jude, if you have a child, unfortunately, they get sick, you don't pay for treatment, you don't pay for housing. That's all done through the fundraising that they do. So that kind of answers part of the question is by us taking in those donations, essentially our supporters are helping us help support other beneficiaries, and they could be anywhere from a St. Jude to an actual wrestling family that is affected firsthand or is going through that now, like you mentioned, just to help support in terms of bills and take the burden off those people that are going through something that nobody should go through.
Where's St. Jude's located?
They're in Memphis, Tennessee.
Okay. Yeah, so where I live, it's AI Children's Hospital, and I believe they have like a whole wing that deals with pediatric cancer. And then, like I had mentioned to you before, and I've actually had them on a previous podcast, but the Be Positive Foundation is heavily involved because they're local there, but they're also, national and international. But, I think before, like I would think about it seems like everybody runs to a GoFundMe now. And certainly there's times that you need it. But like at first I'm thinking to myself, well, why do you need to raise money? Like you have insurance, and not that everybody does, but you have health insurance. But until you learn or you really step back and look at it, like mom or dad might not be able to work, for 6 months, or if their child's in the hospital, or, or if they're the one that's sick. Like there's just so many other factors, or, the cost of medications that aren't covered by insurance, or, the co-pays. Like there's so many things that are there. So
yeah, that's such a good point. I mean, insurance won't cover 100%. I don't think insurance covers 100% of anything. They certainly don't with this. And I forget what, I mean, you're talking $5,000-$10,000 for a bag of chemo or something like that they're charging if that's the treatment you're going through. So, and it's not covered 100%. And you made a good point. Yeah, I mean, my mom wasn't working, and my dad ran his own company, so he had to take time to off to. He's the sole breadwinner in the home, for years, and he wasn't working. So like he'd call me up and say like, hey, I need your help. Like I got to pay mom's insurance. Like even just the premium is something that people and families, like they probably need help with. So, I went through all that firsthand. It sucked. I mean, it put a burden on the entire family, let alone like you're losing a loved one financially. You have to pick up the slack on all that too. So it definitely shook us. It shook us after she passed as well. I mean, the family dynamic just completely shifted. She was like the rock. She was the middle. And, it's definitely tough. It changed my whole trajectory of my life, I feel like, at 27 years old. So, yeah, I mean,
cancer run in her family.
Yeah, unfortunately it does. And it runs on my dad's side too. So my dad's battling it right now. He's got prostate cancer. And, I haven't been to the doctor in probably 10 plus years. I went last year because, I had the history on both sides of my family, both grandparents, and, definitely not looking good. But I think it's just we've come so far because of organizations like this, where for St. Jude in particular, the leading cancer in kids has been like reduced. I think they have like a 98% effective rate on curing these kids for the number one cancer in children over the past 30, 40 years. They've done that. So I think that's just what makes this really important, and why Pin Cancer exists, is to help organizations like that. And really what we're doing is we're giving wrestlers and coaches and fans an avenue to use the sport to support, what we just spoke about, our beneficiaries and families that need it.
Yeah. My father passed away when I was 7 years old of cancer. My mother, thank goodness, is a survivor, but she's had breast cancer, and it's spread a couple of times and they've come back. But she's healthy right now, at least, as healthy as somebody can be. So, it's definitely has touched us. And I know other people, like down the road, kids that were 10, 12 years old that have passed away of cancer. And, it's just horrible. And man, I don't know that there'll ever be a cure, but hopefully one day there's something. Like you said, if you can minimize some of those things. But, So, with pin cancer now, you're saying it's kind of in a resurgence, it's coming back. I know COVID crushed a lot of things. Where do you see that going, or like, how are you? I know you're getting more people involved, but tell us what your new vision or your new plan is to kind of bring that back on steroids.
Sure. Well, I got to thank Rob and Eric, who are currently on the board with me. They just really, lit a fire, and that spark kind of came back. And the fact that two of them have been affected firsthand, and Rob is currently battling himself. And Rob's involved in wrestlers in business. He's a former wrestler as well, so like he's intertwined with the sport. Huge fan of the sport, advocate, and just the two of them really, maybe take a step back and look and say like, no, maybe this is worth doing, right? And that's where we're at. So now, we brought on Skylar. She's been a great addition. She's on, I think she's competing shortly in the world team trials. She just graduated with her MBA with a concentration in marketing. It was a perfect fit. I reached out to her and she's like, yeah, let's do this. And she's been doing a great job of onboarding some of our new ambassadors. We call them brand champions, where we're going after, thanks to NIL and the NCAA lifting all that stuff years ago. We have some of the toughest wrestlers on the college scene that are supporting us, and they're helping us expand our reach. Sarah Hildebrandt just donated one of her Olympic singlets that she won the gold in. And we're doing a giveaway with her. So like, we're just starting to see the support really pour in. I'm opening up my calendar on my site. I've already had a couple of teams and coaches sign up to inquire and talk about hosting Pink Cancer Nights, where we give the teams, singlets, and they spread awareness. We give them custom banners. We do team shirts if that's something that they want to do. And then they end up raising a bunch of money, which is good. We need more teams to do that. And lastly, just, as I mentioned in the beginning, back in 2019, our tournaments are hands down our biggest fundraisers. And I think the reason of that is you just get the people involved, and there's a tangible thing at the end of that road, right? These kids sign up, they're raising money, they're earning gear for their efforts. They're showing up and they're competing, and the competition is good, and the tournaments are run very well. So, you and I have been talking back and forth for the past couple of weeks, and I think it just makes sense to partner with Tyrant Wrestling. And, I'm happy to announce that Tyrant and Pink Cancer will be forming this partnership. And, you're going to see us at just about every single Tyrant tournament. And, we couldn't be happier. I think this is I've always spoken about, I've tried to do as much as I could by myself, but I'm smart and I know I've plateaued. And, if you want to build something very big, you need a really good network of people and resources. And Corey's one of them. And so, yeah, I mean, that's our plan. And I'll be out at the Columbus Day duels. I'm actually in the process of designing my new trade show booth right now. I was doing that this morning. So, yeah, I'm pumped, man.
Yeah, so if I step back for a second, when I first started working with you or met you back in East, when it was hosted at Easton Pin Cancer Nationals, I know that I provided the mats, and we did some setup and breakdown. I don't believe we actually ran the event, so I don't know who did that, but I know that we did the mats and maybe even score clock. But I think you had somebody else. I forget who actually ran it, but we've always kind of, and then I was, a dealer for Terra Grappler, right, for a little while.
Yeah.
I was purchasing shoes from you, and we carried them, and I might still have a couple hanging out in our inventory. But that's
it is Terra Grappler is now Mataborn, right? And we're still semi-involved with that. So if you want to do that again, we can definitely hook you up, because I know the shoes will be here, I think in October-ish, November for this season. So we sold it there, and we have a nice little transition period where we're gonna help the new owner try to kill it. So we'll have to talk about that again.
So then, I've always had you in my contacts, and I know maybe every once in a great while we would talk about something, and I called you about something completely unrelated the other day, and then you shot me a text, kind of related to this, and then we've talked a few times. So yeah, from my perspective, it's more than just wrestling, right? So like I worked at MBNA America, a credit card company. I hated school. I didn't go to college, and I started a family really young. So as soon as I graduated high school, I started working at a credit card company. But I was always, and I took about a year off after high school because I lost in the state finals 2 years in a row, and I was like, "Fuck wrestling, I hate this," But But anyway, then my father-in-law at the time, he was a youth wrestling coach. So he got me back into it. But, kind of fast forward, you know, it's more than just, so then I got out of banking and I went full time. I started waking up in the morning. I'm like, man, I just don't feel like I'm making a difference in the world. And I love coaching and I love having an impact on kids' lives and kind of developing them and getting to know the parents and all that. So I became a full-time coach. But, like these tournaments, now I'm not coaching anymore. So we went from like 2 tournaments to 20 tournaments when I stopped coaching. But like, the network that you develop and the relationships that you build and the people all over the country. And, now like, yeah, I'm not coaching them every night, but I see the kid that starts coming to our tournament at the age of 7 and now he's 17 and you watch him grow up and you get to know the families, or you see him then go compete in college. And, it's certainly special, but at the end of the day, for me, it's always been more than just that. Right. So, and I mentioned to you the other day, but, we're partnered in some capacity with Alzheimer's, Parkinson's. We've done breast cancer, and then a lot of what we do on a consistent basis is, mental health and suicide prevention. But, originally it was breast cancer because my mother had breast cancer. And then I've known other people that have had it or, have not been able to beat it and they passed away, unfortunately. Or I think, and even if, like the local organization that we do is pediatric cancer with B positive. So at the end of the day, any form of cancer, however it is, ovarian, brain, breast, whatever it may be, we want to be in that fight with you. So I already knew who you were, and I love what you've done. And as we've gotten to know each other, it's all about having good partners and good people to do things with. So yeah, I think one, to kind of reiterate what you just said is Pin Cancer will be at Columbus Day Duels this year. We've talked about it a little bit, but publicly, but we're going to have 86 mats there this year, and we have a waiting list. So it'll be the largest tournament, at least from the perspective of mats. It'll be the largest tournament mat-wise in the history of wrestling in the world. We're actually working with the Guinness World Book Record. So an awesome time for you to come back in. Now it is a couple weeks early. We rescheduled it this year to a different date just for this year because of the Super 32 had to change their date. So we are in September, but it's still going to be full-fledged cancer awareness. So we'll have you there in the booth. And then I know we're going to have you at as many of our tournaments as possible as part of that fundraising. And then, so all Tyrant tournaments. And then to be announced, once we finalize some things, we'll have a specific Pin Cancer tournament. We'll bring back the Pin Cancer Nationals, and that'll probably be in the spring of 2025. So this season, just next year. So yeah, man, we're really excited, and we want to do good. And, we're always, you got to your point, whether it's a for-profit or a nonprofit, you have to be able to sustain. And, we have a staff of about 10 full-time staff of about 10 people. And, we own all our trucks and trailers and mats and score clocks, like all that kind of stuff. Then we have our weekend employees, but at the end of the day, there's always some profit in there. And we'd like to take a portion of that profit and be able to give it to some organizations. And, yeah, I'm really excited. And that's part of the reason why we had the podcast today, right? Is to kind of bring back the awareness and resurgence of Pin Cancer, but then also let everybody know about our partnership. And just, I look forward to great things. So, and all the people that you're bringing on board now, like, it's just going to be awesome.
Yeah, no, I'm pumped. And, this is a big part of it for sure. We can bring all the college guys on and girls on as we want, and they're good for the awareness piece of it. But this is the business for us, and this is where we raise the money. So I think it's important. It's something that we've been missing. And, now we're coming out of the gate with one of the biggest tournaments in history. So can't wait for next month. And, I'll see you in person. I haven't seen you, I don't think, in 4 or 5 years. And no, I think you're spot on. It's about partnering with the right people, and you're the go-to for this. And I'm glad you picked up my phone call and we chatted a little bit, and now we're here. And come next spring, we'll hopefully have a number of how much dollars we raised, how many dollars we've actually raised just in the past 6, 7, 8 months. Right. I'm looking forward to it.
So right now, until, we start really getting things out there, whether it's through email marketing, social media, once we update the Tyrant website and kind of see the co-branding, but where can people find you / learn more about the organization, or maybe start making donations or raising money right away?
Yeah. You can go to pincancer.org or follow us anywhere at pincancer. We're really trying to grow our Instagram account right now. I think we're at like 20, we're climbing in at 22,000. And, part of it is the awareness, and that's what these, all of our brand champions and ambassadors are doing for us. But if you really want to donate, we just go to pinkcancer.org. You'll actually right now, I think, see a bar at the top of our website where we're trying to get people to donate just $15 a month. This is something I spoke to St. Jude about. They get big corporate sponsors that donate tens of millions of dollars every single year. But when you talk to the people that run that organization, the bulk of their money is actually raised from people that donate probably less than $10 a month or $5 a month, whatever it is. $15 a month is 50 cents a day. I spend probably 5 times more than that, if 10 times more than that, on coffee every single day, probably. And, that's something that is just a new initiative that we've never really offered. And I'm trying to get people to just be engaged with us throughout the entire year, and just know that, $15 is not nothing when we have thousands of other people potentially doing that. Right. And that's probably the one things as a business aspect of it is, in the off season, since we weren't doing tournaments, we're not raising any money, unfortunately. So our board and myself and everyone else that's involved kind of went with like, what can we at least do to have that constant cash flow, right? So we're not starting every single season in the red. So that was one new thing that we've introduced. But yeah, you can go to pinkcancer.org, learn about us, see who's on the team.
Set up. So they don't have to do a one-time donation. They can go on there and set up like a recurring monthly charge, like a gym membership.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Cheaper than a gym membership, maybe the same. I don't know. But yeah, we do all that through a fundraising software. It's super easy. You just put your information in there, and you'll be contributing, quite a bit if we can get a handful of people to do it.
I mean, here's the thing, like there's definitely the people that can write the big checks, but you got to wonder sometimes, do people just not contribute because they think their amount is just so small and insignificant? When really, like I've thought about before, like just jokingly to myself, man, what if I got 1 million people to donate $1 a piece, I'd have $1 million, right? So like, think about that. If you had fucking 1 million people and they donated only $1, that's at least $1 million to your organization.
Yeah, it's really powerful for sure. I would love to try to market that a little bit more, and to your point, yeah, we do lean into corporate sponsors this year. We don't decline any amount. So we try not to get anyone under $1,000 if you're like a brand partnering with us, but we've gotten people donate $10,000, $20,000. And what we're trying to do is just make it worth their while. So like, we want to get them involved with our marketing. We want to have them at some of our, have some signage at our events and all that stuff. We also have, great relationships with some of these, some of the Team USA wrestling team members, where we want to start, having them come into these businesses and talk about, mindset or whatever it is and stuff like that. And that's the stuff that their donation they'll get in return of like a $10,000 or $20,000 donation. And again, like a $10,000 donation helps us pay for our fundraising platform for the year, right? That's a big one. There's other costs. Look at social media. It's a great way for us to get the eyeballs out there. We're trying to do as much as we can organically, and that's why we're signing some of our brand ambassadors who are have huge audiences, so we can kind of piggyback off of them. But at the same time, we are introducing some paid strategies where we're trying to get people to at least buy a T-shirt or just get them aware of who we are. Right? We only have, I think, 12,000 followers on Facebook. Facebook is typically an older demographic. I was out at the Olympic trials this year at Penn State. And I was pretty close, and some gentleman was behind me talking about how, Kyle Dake just lost his dad to cancer. Right. And that was something that wasn't really public. I wasn't aware of it. But I overheard him talking. So we kind of got in a conversation, and I just asked him, I'm like, have you ever heard of pink cancer? He said, no. So right then and there, I'm like, we need to do more marketing, right? We need to get our word out. And this will play just a pivotal part in all of that, because like you mentioned, I don't know how many wrestlers you're getting on a tournament or who's going to be at the Columbus Day Duels. For us to be there for free and partner with you on those things and just be there and just have a presence is huge. And that's something that we haven't done in years. I used to go out to the NCAAs and do the whole fan fest, and we haven't done that in years. So like, being around wrestling and just the community is going to help us a lot, because it's going to solve that problem of me asking people if they've ever heard of us. And hopefully they can say, they'll say yes in the next 12 months.
You were at the Fan Fest. Did you have a booth in the Fan Fest?
Last time I was at the Fan Fest was out in St. Louis, before kids. This was actually right after my mom passed. And my wife and I and two of our friends drove out there in an RV. We brought the entire Pink Cancer booth with us, and we were there. And it was good. You know, we don't really sell that much stuff there while we're there. People just kind of, we try to get people informed and educated on how they can get involved. That's the main goal. And then we had, you know, an ad in the program. But I think it's more than that. It's about, you know, being there and being top of mind, and really for me, like my little Ari Gold, I don't know if anyone's an
Yeah.
Entourage fan, but he's super aggressive and he gets shit done. And that's kind of my mindset. That's why he's behind me. And I, you know, I approach everything that way. I had my own wrestling club. Back in the day, I actually closed it down after my mom passed. I was like, I just don't want to do it anymore. And plus I was working full time and doing Pink Cancer was too much. But like, that was my mindset when I built it. Unfortunately, like I cut ties with the current club I was at, and there was a little bad blood there. And the first thing I did was make sure that I put together a team that was going to beat their team. And I did that the first tournament. Like, that's just my mindset. Like, I think a lot of wrestlers have that mindset. We want to dominate and win and be aggressive. And, you know, that's where we're at. That's where my mind is right now with Pink Cancer. Like, I'm going all in with it. I still work full time. Luckily, I get to work from home, so I'm very flexible. The company I work for now, shout out to them, because, you know, they know I'm doing this on the side. They know I have my own little podcast that I do, that we talk about growth, business growth, and marketing. And I think more companies are encouraging that, to be honest. You know, Pink Cancer has played a pivotal role in my success for a career. You know, I've worked for Unilever, which is one of the biggest companies in the world. You know, I've worked for Casio and G-Shock, like, and then I worked for startups, and I bounced around, but Pink Cancer has always been that core where I did learn a lot that I'm applying to my career right now. I joke to people that it was my own mini MBA, because I couldn't pay anyone to do any of it. So I had to learn it all myself. And that was just, if, you know, career advice aside from Pink Cancer, that's the best advice I can give people, is just try to do something on the side, because I had to build my own website, build my own e-commerce. You know, I do all of the accounting. I have a CPA that does like our filing and stuff, but I learned all that, and that was something that helped me kind of jumpstart my career. But yeah, I mean, going back with the mindset, that's where I'm at. And like I said, this partnership with Tyrant and you, Corey, is gonna, I think, really just propel us to where we want to be in the next year or two. So thank you for that.
Funny thing is, I don't know that I've ever seen somebody have RE Gold. It's usually Tony Montana from Scarface.
Yeah, I forget. Some people don't know it, right? So if you're, I think I might be the youngest. You know, I think Entourage came out when I was in college, so it was something that we watched every single weekend. And back in the day, you had to wait to the actual day to watch it. You couldn't just binge watch it through all the way. But I've watched it a million times over, and it's yeah, he's a good character. Jeremy Piven does a good job, and I don't agree with all the stuff that he says or did in that, but I think on a business side, like that, no one crushes it better than that guy. Yeah, I can't really put Tony Montana up there. When I get on calls with high school coaches or youth coaches, it's probably not, you know, a good thing to be hanging. I should take it down really and get a new Pink Cancer banner. That's what I should do. But
Don't you feel like, and I watched Entourage as well, but don't you feel like that just could have been you and your friends as well? Like, they got lucky and got the part, but that could have been any of us.
yeah, and I think it's like it comes down to like taking a risk, right? It's like you just got to do it. I'm trying to talk my wife into doing her own thing right now, and that's confidential. But you know, I'm encouraging her to branch off, because she is just an excellent businesswoman and she's a leader. She's more tough than I am, and she's going to tell you how it is. And I think that's the type of person you need to start something, like start a business. So like, kudos to you for doing it, and I'm sure you'll agree. It's just about doing it. Like, you can't overthink it. If you think you'll have, you know, analysis paralysis, it'll never be perfect. There'll be ups and downs. And, you know, I've seen ups and downs with Pink Cancer, with Terra Grappler, you know, with the companies I work for. And I think it's just a matter of doing it, starting it. And I think it's really becoming mainstream, to be honest. You know, I don't know if you follow like Gary Vaynerchuk or Gary V, but he's kind of the one who coined like I was an entrepreneur before an entrepreneur was cool, and he really paved the way. And now you're seeing a really young generation that they're so tech savvy, and they can build their own sites. So like the barrier to entry on some of these like businesses is very low. It's the lowest it's ever been, I think, ever in the world to start a business. It's very easy. I'm trying to mentor and help Skylar do her own thing on the side as well as she's helping with us. That's kind of part of our deal, is like, if you have questions, you come to me and I'll help you. Um, but yeah, I did it at 22, 23 years old, and it's paid dividends my entire career, whether, not really financially, but I guess you could kind of say that, because I've made a lot more money throughout my career because of it, not being paid by Pink Cancer, but landing really big opportunities, because like I said, a lot of these big companies and even startups, they want to know that you can do this, the days of not being hands-on with the tech. I know we're getting way off track, but you can hear the passion.
Listen, I was actually going to say,
that's what I like to do.
I was actually going to say, I know we got through quite a bit of the Pink Cancer stuff. Let's spin it a little bit now on the nonprofit side. Like you still, or you're right. Like you still have to run it like a business and you do all that, but you weren't necessarily ever at financial risk, let's say, of yourself, like all in with your own finances and stuff. And you did have a full-time job, but when you started Terra Grappler, or your clothing line, your shoe line, all those types of things, I mean, talk a little bit about that, because that's what I really love, is building businesses. And when I think about that, though, I'm like, I look at it, I'm like, man, you're talking about your wife. I think about some of my friends or people that I know, and I'm like, man, like, why are you working so hard for another company? You could go out and do this on your own and build an empire, or at least just have the freedom and flexibility, or do it for yourself, as opposed to like, one day you're going to come in, they're just going to lay you off because they got to meet a number. They don't care about you. But I don't think everybody's wired to be an entrepreneur, you know what I mean? Or they don't want to live with that stress. I mean, I'm stressed every single day. A lot of it's self-inflicted. And then, depending on how you build a business or how you start things, you certainly could be risking, your financial, future, or like everything that you have or save for, or, you might have to move back in with your parents, or you might have to sell a vehicle, or like whatever. But so like when you started, let's say, the shoe business, but talk a little bit about that, or like how or why you did it, or were you scared to do it, or was there a lot of money, or?
Yeah, that one was unique because neither one of us were scared to do it. We knew we were going to build it on the side. We were building it at night. There was no stress, because if it went away tomorrow, we didn't care. We weren't dependent on it. The company was never in the red. It never had debt. So we funded it ourselves. That was, I guess, the only debt was what we put into it ourselves. But we did everything ourselves. So it was a little bit different. When you know how to build the website, the marketing, it takes a little bit of the pressure off, I think, because otherwise you have to hire those people. But you're 100% right. Typically, it is very stressful. People always praise like, oh, you have the freedom and time off to do everything, but essentially you're probably putting more time into it because you're the only ones working on it, right? Unless you're hiring some other people. And then that becomes another stressful situation because you have payroll and like you have to pay people. I've listened to Alex Hormozy, guys that are very successful right now. Like for the first couple of years of them doing it, it was a grind. If anyone doesn't know who he is, go follow Alex Hormozy. He's been around for like the past 5 years or so. And he's worth, I think probably hundreds of millions of dollars at this point. And he's in his like mid 30s. So to answer your question,
$30.
What's up?
And he looks like he's worth $30.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he's real like he doesn't shave or cut his hair or anything. He wears like no strip and like the same tank top every single day, but that's his brand. It's like genius when you think about it. He hasn't changed it at all. So but yeah, starting Terra Grappler, it was just, I think it came off of an idea. We were solving a problem for Pink Cancer. So typically, I think a lot of businesses start there. It's like solving a problem or seeing an opportunity in a market that there's someone there and they're doing a shit job of it, or there's just not a lot of saturation. So I think opportunity. And then I would actually say the second piece of it is getting the people right. So partnering with Jared was a smart move because him and I share a similar mindset and a similar background. We both went to Bloomsburg. We're both from the same area up here in Jersey. I've known him since high school. He was an athlete. He is just very, I would always consider him like above the trend or just setting a very high bar in terms of his own expectations. And I think that's what led him to be so successful with Samsung, and now he's with Meta. Like he holds like a global position with Meta. It's very hard to do. You know, he's on calls with Zuck and like all this stuff. So like I think you have to get the people right. And he was a good resource. And then the next step was, all right, we're going to split this 50-50. This is my responsibility. This is your responsibility. These are our bylaws. And like, we're going to follow this just in case shit hits the fan and we want to, you know, part ways or something, which, believe it or not, happened more than once. You know, Jared and I didn't always see eye to eye, and you're going to have that, especially if you're in a small like partnership like that. You guys aren't agree on everything. But I think what the way we kind of came out of it each time is we just gave each other space. Like if I was venting to him about something that I didn't like, he would just kind of play it off like, okay. And we'd like 2 days would go by and then we'd come back and be like, all right, like let's figure this out. Like it was never like a big screaming match or anything like that. So we tried to keep it professionally, but it's tough because like we're really good friends. Like we lived together at one point and then hated each other because we lived together. And then, you know, years went by and we reconnected, built that business, and then ultimately sold it, you know, this year. And yeah, it was just a matter of starting. And I think you have to be somewhat smart and business savvy to grow it. And then I think, yeah, like I said, getting the people right. The one thing I wish we did was bring more people on and like give up a little bit of equity, because I'm a big believer in like, if you want to do something really big, you can't do it with just two people. Like, I don't know any big business that's been built with just two people. And that was one of the areas where we kind of disagreed, where maybe we weren't ready to scale it because it wasn't full time for us. Like like I said, that's why there was no stress or there was no pressure on us, because we weren't pulling anything financially from it. It was just going back into the business. It was really just for fun, to be honest. And I mean, obviously we did it to help Pink Cancer at first, which it did. All of our gear went through Pink Cancer. Then we did a couple team gear orders, but you can only do so much of that. Jared was our sole designer and I was the only one doing the marketing. So like, how much can you possibly do with two people? Like we weren't going to compete with Rudis and the big players, you know? So we took a step back. We didn't do it for about a year. We didn't bring any shoes in. We were just selling what we had through. And then we had a goal. We had like a 2-year goal to exit. And fortunately we found, you know, we had a couple of people approach us. One of the deals was great when you read it on paper really, really quick. I remember being in Florida at the time and we got it sent to us. And I was like, oh my God, like I'm signing this right now. I got to sign this because it's so good. And then I started reading it and I was like, screw this. Like I'm going to be working for this guy for the next 10 years to pay off whatever, you know, his offer was. He was going to pay us royalties for like 100 years. I was like, no, dude, like we need a check right now and it's yours. And luckily we found that, and we're still supporting him and his group. And they're going to be bringing in some shoes, you know, the end of this year. And hopefully they kill it and they're making millions of dollars. Because if that's the case, they're going to have to hire Jared and I back.
Saw something the other day though, and it was like, you know, if you want to, you know, be self-employed, but if you want to be a business owner to have freedom, then you should probably keep your day job. Because really, you know, even the people that have that freedom, it's more about flexibility or time, right? But it's after you put in 10, 20 years. It's after you've been in the trenches digging and doing all those things. But yeah, like I might be able to leave during the day at, you know, 1 o'clock and go on a 2-hour lunch, which I don't do most of the time, right? But I could go on a 2-hour lunch or do whatever, but then that means I'm working 2, 3, 4 more hours tonight, you know, or getting up earlier tomorrow morning. But I think the biggest thing is it's a labor of love, right? Like I love what I do. I love building things. I like doing things I think other people can't do. I love working with my family every day. You know, all 3 of my kids work for me. And then a lot of the other people that work for me, I know them somehow, whether they wrestled for me, you know, or whether they coached me or, you know, friends or family members or whatever. But I like being my own boss. I like not being told what to do, but I do have thousands of bosses, right? All those customers that show up to tournaments every week.
True, yeah.
But generally speaking, but like, I mean, if I step back and I slow down for a minute and I really say, man, I love my life and I'm really grateful for what I've built and what I have. And, you know, like it sounds crazy, you know, aside from all the other goals that I would have, but like part of it is you want to start to earn back some of your time. So like for me, I have 2 grandchildren now, just had the second grandson, but before the second one was born in July, you know, a month ago, one of my goals was, hey man, on Wednesdays, I want to be able to leave around 1, 2 o'clock and I'm going to go pick my grandson up from daycare when he wakes up from his nap, and I'm going to spend the afternoon with him, because before you know it, he's going to be 10 years old or going off to college. And, I just really value time and with my friends and my family, and you never get that back,
That's a really good point, but I think you're spot on. Like that comes 5, 10 years down the road, unfortunately, and nothing's going to happen overnight. And that's something, if you are going to start kind of setting your expectations and have that patience, because that plays a big part of it, because it comes down to your mind, I think. And a lot of people will start, I don't know what the number is, but like 95% of businesses fail probably, that are like people that are self-employed, because they just don't wait it out long enough, I feel like. And I guess my advice for anyone that's younger, or even, my age or older, if you are working full time, and especially if you're working like remote the majority of the time, just understand that, like, I don't have to commute. I don't really take an hour. I don't remember. I haven't taken an hour lunch in 5 years. Like, I just, like, you'll see me drink these, or I heat something up and I immediately come back here and I'm working. But you are going to be working in the morning. I've put in nights where I'm up to, I actually enjoy working at night, to be honest. I get more done. So anything pin cancer or Telegraph, or anything I was doing on the side throughout the past 10 years, my wife went to bed by herself a lot, and I don't do it as often now. Maybe I will now that we're ramping up a little bit more, but I enjoy working at night. But that's something that you're going to have to do. Like, it's cliche, but you're not going out on Fridays, like, or Saturdays. Like, if you want something to do, to be successful, you have to put the time in. And unfortunately, if you're working full time, it is possible to build something on the side. I've been doing it for 10 plus years. But at some point, you have to go all in on it, right? And I'm not there yet with it. Hopefully, maybe pin cancer will be that thing I can go all in on in the next couple of years.
Yeah, some of those other things that you see, like, but it's like, I'm a 15-year overnight success. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, everybody only sees what you now, and they think, like, boom, they can jump right in. But really, like, for me, like, even the tournaments, I'm like, man, I should have went full time with tournaments 10 years earlier, and I should have, could have, would have. But at the same time, my 20-year coaching career is what got me to that point. Going to Fargo every year and coaching, going to junior and cadet duels and schoolboy duels and Tulsa Nationals, and all the things that I've done, and the relationships that I built. Now I can pick up the phone and call anybody, right? Or so that's some of those things. And it's just, I mean, certainly there are some overnight successes. People do get lucky, but a lot of times it's the 10, 15, 20 years of working late nights or getting up at 4 in the morning and all those things. And that's what they don't understand. They just see, potentially the flashy cars, or, all the followers on the internet. But yeah, well, look, man, I appreciate you coming on. I'm really, really excited about the partnership, and more so than, let's say, some, I'd say, for lack of better words, normal partnerships, is we're going to be able to help and give back. So we're not a corporate. Have you gotten any corporate sponsors since you came back on?
Last year we got a handful. We actually got a big.
Right now that you're bringing it back, have you gotten any corporate sponsors?
No, we haven't. So
I'm not a corporation. I'm a small business, but
exactly.
I'm going to be your first. So, like, as of today, minimally, I'm going to hand you a check for $1,000 when I see you.
Thank you. That's awesome. Yeah, no, you'll get us going, and we can use that as a little messaging to other wrestling companies out there, because obviously we're looking for support from everybody, to be honest. And I appreciate it, Corey. That's awesome. You don't have to do that, but like I said,
I always want to say that, hey, I'll match dollar for dollar, or I'll match this for that up, but then I'm always nervous that, shit, man, what if you raise $100,000? Like, I'm going to have to take out a mortgage. So
yeah, don't do that. Because that'll screw with my mind. And then I'm going to be like, all right, I'm going to make Corey pay $100,000. Let's do this. Like, that's a good goal to have. It's a good challenge. Wrestlers like challenges. And, I think the next 12 months will be a good challenge for me to see how big we can get this. And to be honest, again, thank you. It starts here. And like I said, this partnership alone is really going to help us just propel. To be honest, it's going to save me time, right? It's going to save me 5 years, because I feel like in the next 12 months, we'll get to where we probably were 5 years without this partnership. That's probably the best way I can put it. So I appreciate it. And the monetary donation obviously helps a bunch. But just partnering with you as a person, I think is going to go really far. And we know I'm in it for the long run, and I have a great team behind me that we're building. So, lastly, if anyone's listening out there, wrestling coaches, fans, if you want to join our board, please, email me at dan@pinkcancer.org. Or if you just want to get involved or ask questions, you can book. If you go to our website on desktop on your computer, you'll see my calendar on there where you can just book time with me. And I have a call tomorrow morning with a coach out in Michigan. I got hit up a couple months ago. You'll see this on our social media. Youth rec program down in South Jersey. One of their moms somehow got my phone number. I'm not sure. And she just straight up texted me. And I love that because I'm not one to pick up the phone a lot. But if you text me, which I think you can find my number on the site as well. She was like, "Hey, Dan, I'm a mom and we do a clinic every year. We found Pink Cancer. We want to host this clinic and it's going to be $20. Can we donate to you?" And I was like, I'll do you even better. So I built their own page for them, their campaign where kids could sign up. If they raised $100, all those kids got a free t-shirt. They had clinicians show up. I think they ended up raising $6,000 just on a little tiny clinic that they had maybe 30 kids at. So like, there's an opportunity to do something with us, whether it's just an awareness or a clinic or a camp or a tournament. You're our official tournament partner, so I won't be partnering with anyone else on that front. But there's if you have an idea, like we want to hear it and we're willing to work with you. And I think for the first time since I've started this organization, I've just become just more motivated than ever. And I used to hide behind it a lot. I didn't want people to know that I was involved in it. It's not that I didn't want people to know. It's just I didn't do it full time. So in my mind, it was my own limiting belief, and I think that's what kept it from growing. And now that belief is completely gone. And I'm just taking one thing at a time. This is a number one probably for this year is this partnership. And then when we hang up on this podcast, I'll be jumping on my computer and trying to find out what number two is. But that's where we're at. And thanks for having me on. This was a fun conversation. And I will see you at Columbus Day Duels.
I get the kind of closing out. Like I heard, I think it was today, maybe yesterday, but and you got to have something. There's all different ways to give, right? Your time, your money, or whatever. But at the end of the day, how do I feel better? I feel better when I help other people. Just give time, share your experience, give money, whatever you can give. And it's going to come back to you one way or another. Like you're not doing it for selfish reasons. You're trying to help out other people, but one way or another, it will circle back and you will benefit it emotionally, physically, mentally, financially, one way or another. So Dan, great catching up with you. Thanks so much, man. I look forward to working with you guys and I'm glad you're back. Thanks.
Thanks, Corey.